Hello everyone, quick introduction of myself. I am Dr. Mukul Mohindra. Specifically speaking, I am a sports surgeon, but my basic specialty that's orthopedics. So I'll be just covering this subject with you over a couple of sessions. Now starting first up with the class, let me first tell you what is orthopedics all about. Ortho means straight, pedics means child. So the prime purpose behind this branch that was to correct the deformities in children. But what happened with time? That a number of other areas they just propped into the subject. Fractures, accident joint injuries, traumatology. That became bread and butter of an orthopedic surgeon. And eventually orthopedics grew up to be a branch that would deal with anything that would concern the limbs and the spine. So that will be my syllabus for these classes. I'll be taking up the fractures and the joint injuries, but I'll be taking up the nerve injuries, the tumors, the infections, the pediatric deformities, the spinal injuries. So anything on limbs, anything on spine, that will be orthopedics. But yes, the bread and butter of an orthopedic surgeon, fractures. So my beginning will be with the fractures, and once we are done with all the fractures, I will take up all other areas of orthopedics. So starting with traumatology and starting with some general principles of traumatology, So let me first introduce you to this structure called bone. I mean, what do I mean when I call something as bone? Okay, now just understand, bone is 1/3 part that is organic in nature, and bone is 2/3 part that is inorganic in nature. Now what I basically mean by organic, that is the biological component in the bone, the living component in the bone, and what I mean by inorganic is the non-living component in the bone. Now the main non-living component in the bone, that is mineral, and I don't think I even need to tell you the dominant mineral that makes up the bone, calcium hydroxyapatite. So 2/3 of the bone, that is simply calcium. Now 1/3 of the bone is the organic component in the bone, or the biological component in the bone, the living component in the bone, and the living component in the bone is basically made up of cells and proteins. So cells and proteins, they basically make up the living component in the bone. Cells, I think you already know, bone forming cells, osteoblasts, bone eating cells, osteoclasts. So these cells, they would just make up 5% of the living part. Actually 95% of the living part, proteins. 95% of the living part, they are actually the proteins, and I don't think I even need to tell you the dominant protein that makes up the bone, type 1 collagen. Type 1 collagen, that is the dominant protein that makes up the bone. So if I just summarize this table up, 2/3 of the bone is simply calcium, and almost 1/3 of the bone is basically collagen. So in short, a bone is basically a combination of calcium with collagen. So this calcium collagen combination is basically what you call as the bone. Now once you are clear with the chemical structure of the bone, it becomes very easy for me even to explain to you the anatomical structure of the bone. So what are basically the parts of a normal long bone? Well, let me tell you, right at the top what you have over here, this is the epiphysis, then down here is the metaphysis, and then this area is the diaphysis, and then this horizontal line that you can see over here is something called growth plate, or technically you call it as physis, PHYSIS, physis. So if I just take up the parts of a long bone, this is epiphysis, this is physis or growth plate, this is metaphysis, and this is diaphysis. Now very easy to pinpoint where is epiphysis. where is physis, where is metaphysis. But if I ask you, where does this metaphysis end, or where does this diaphysis begin? So there is no crystal clear point that you just mark that the metaphysis is over or the diaphysis is started. Well, this difference you cannot speak from an X-ray. This difference is basically observed under a microscope. When you look under a microscope, what you find that this metaphysis is all cancellous bone, spongy bone, that meshwork of trabeculae, those abundant blood vessels, rosettes, pseudo rosettes. And this diaphysis is basically cortical bone. And in short, metaphysio-diaphyseal junction, that can also be labeled as cortico-cancellous junction. So what is the take-home message? What is the take-home message? So what is the take-home message? That metaphysis, this is cancellous bone, while diaphysis, this is cortical bone, those round lamellae. In between you have osteoblasts, right in the center you have that blood vessel, Haversian canal, cortical bone. So metaphysis is cancellous bone, diaphysis is cortical bone, and metaphysio-diaphyseal junction is what you call as the cortico-cancellous junction. Now what is the idea of knowing this? Well, just understand that metaphysis is cancellous bone. Cancellous bone has excellent surface area, has a very good vascularity. So whenever you would have fractures in the cancellous bone, they would always unite. वो जुड़ेंगे ही जुड़ेंगे. बट एक चीज, जिसने जुड़ना ही जुड़ना है, इफ यू डोंट फिक्स इट नाइसली, गलत जुड़ जाएगी. सो माई मैसेज इज क्लियर टू यू दैट प्रॉब्लम विद फ्रैक्चर्स इन द मेटाफाइसिस, गलत जुड़ जाना, मेल यूनियन. बट प्रॉब्लम विद फ्रैक्चर्स इन द डायाफाइसिस, नॉन यूनियन, बिकॉज द वैस्कुलरिटी इज नॉट गुड. सो माई मैसेज इज क्लियर टू यू, देयर इज अ फ्रैक्चर in the metaphysis, just talk of malunion as a complication, and if there is a fracture in the diaphysis, now talk of non-union as a complication, because metaphysis, that is cancellous bone, always unites, you don't fix nicely, malunites. But diaphysis, that is cortical bone, goes into non-union. So problem with metaphyseal fractures, malunion. Problem with fractures in diaphysis, non-union. So that is the simple message I wanted to convey to you. Now moving a little further, let me brief you that this area, diaphysis, this is further broken down into two areas. Outside what you have is cortex, and inside this empty canal is called medullary cavity, medullary canal. Now just outside this cortex, you have a thin layer of soft tissue that is adherent to this cortex, that's called periosteum. You already know. Now cortex is such a thick structure, so why there is something called periosteum that is attached to cortex of bone? Let me brief you that. Let me also brief you that why do you have something called periosteum that is attached to the cortex of the bone? Well, you will understand the purpose of the periosteum as I would tell you the structure of the periosteum. So please understand the structure of periosteum. Now this periosteum basically has an outer fibrous layer and an inner cambium layer. So there is an outer fibrous layer in the periosteum and there is an inner cambium layer in the periosteum. Now the purpose of this fibrous layer, this fibrous layer basically takes care of blood supply to the bone. But then you already know that there is something called nutrient artery that supplies blood to the bone. Nutrient artery, a blood vessel that would enter into the medullary canal, then branch up, branch down and supply blood to the bone, that is nutrient artery. But here I am saying that it is periosteum that takes care of blood supply. So the message is very simple. The message is very simple. Dual pattern of blood supply. The cortical blood supply comes from the periosteum and the medullary blood supply comes from the nutrient artery. And what is the idea of knowing it? Very simple. There is a fracture in the bone. You fix that fracture with a nail. Nutrient artery gone. Periosteal blood supply takes over. There is a fracture in the bone. You fix that fracture with a plate. Periosteal blood supply gone. Nutrient artery takes over. So that's how we take advantage of this dual nature of blood supply, and we fix the bone with a nail or a plate, because even if we damage one system, the other system is capable of taking over. So just note down with me the real scenario, that the purpose of this fibrous layer in the periosteum is basically to take care of cortical blood supply to the bone. The cortical blood supply that is carried in the fibrous layer of the periosteum, because if you talk of medullary blood supply, this basically gets carried away by the nutrient artery. So bone has a dual pattern of blood supply. The cortical blood supply comes from the periosteum, the medullary blood supply comes from the nutrient artery. And as far as this inner cambium layer is concerned, this is a layer that deals with the bone growth. But you already know that for growth of the bone, you have this structure that is called physis, or what you in layman language call a growth plate. So what is the take home message? That this physis, it leads to increase in length of bone. Increase in length of bone. This is called interstitial growth, and this basically occurs at physis. But as you grow, you also grow in width. Increase in width of the bone. This is called appositional growth, and this appositional growth basically occurs at periosteum. So bone also has a dual growth pattern: increase in length, growth plate; increase in width, periosteum. So interstitial growth, physis; appositional growth, periosteum. So bone has a dual blood supply pattern, and bone has a dual growth pattern. Now once we are clear with the chemical as well as the anatomical structure of the bone, now you reach that state where you and me now have that discussion that what is a fracture. So let me first brief you on technical definition of a fracture. Like, what is exactly a fracture? The technical definition of a fracture: a break in even a single cortex of bone. A break in even a single cortex of bone is called a fracture. तो बोन का एक कॉर्टेक्स भी टूट जाता है तो हम उसे फ्रैक्चर कहते हैं. ब्रेक इन इवन अ सिंगल कॉर्टेक्स ऑफ बोन इज कॉल्ड अ फ्रैक्चर. But please understand that this is just a bookish kind of a definition. This is not a practical definition. Like, if I will have a fall over here, my bone will break, but some soft tissues will also be injured. Some muscles will be torn, some ligaments will be ruptured. So in a practical sense, a fracture would be a soft tissue injury where the bone also breaks. So fracture will be a soft tissue injury where the bone also breaks. So my message is clear to you that whenever I am going to talk of a fracture, I am also going to talk of some soft tissue injuries. So what I do, I use this word strain whenever I wish to denote an injury to a muscle, and I use this word sprain whenever I wish to denote an injury to a ligament. So an injury to a muscle, that will be strain, and an injury to a ligament, that will be sprain. And then you also have joints in the body. For joints we don't use the word fracture. For joints we use this word called dislocation. Dislocation means two joint surfaces have no contact with each other. So when two joint surfaces, they have no contact with each other, that is basically what you call a dislocation. Then please don't forget that sometimes the dislocation that you are dealing with is just a kind of a partial dislocation, and a partial dislocation that is basically also called as subluxation. So these are the terms we are going to use as we go ahead and discuss various fractures. Cortex of bone breaks, fracture. Muscle tears, strain. Ligament ruptures, sprain. Joint surfaces lose contact, dislocation. Partial dislocation, subluxation. So I hope you are clear with all the terminologies. Well, if you are clear with all the terminologies, let me tell you what all fractures are we going to discuss. Well, we are just going to discuss common fractures, and yes, sometimes this is just an MCQ, that which is the commonest fracture in orthopedics. Commonest fracture in orthopedics, most common fracture in orthopedics, I would say go with the fracture of clavicle. By and large, the commonest fracture we're going to see, if you're sitting in the orthopedic clinics, clavicle. Most common fracture in orthopedics, clavicle. But please understand that even though this is a possible MCQ, it is not a popular MCQ. It's not a popular MCQ because the type of fractures vary from place to place and vary from time to time. Like, just think of time to time difference. Think of the times today. You have tall buildings, so someone can fall from 20th floor. But the pattern of injury would absolutely be different from the times of 1920s, 1930s, when there were no tall buildings, rather there were kacha buildings. So rather than person falling from the building would fall on the person. So the pattern of injury would be different. And then there's a place to place difference also. Like, think of a country like America. Pediatric fractures relatively very rare, because when a child gets an injury in America, the mother has to answer before the police. Where was she when her child was playing on the road? But think of a country like India. Some families, so many children, that even if a full child is missing, mother gets to know only on the birthday कि यार आज वो वाला नहीं दिख रहा. So pediatric fractures may be common on our side, but they may not be as common on the Western world. So type of fractures, they have a variation. So examiners generally don't ask you on a overall manner that which is the commonest fracture. When they ask you such a question, they generally try to limit the answer by adding on some extra information, like the examiner would ask you which is most common fracture, but now he would add on the age of the patient. So if the age of the patient is given, then how to reach the answer? Well, let me tell you, if you are asked the commonest fracture at birth, then please have no doubts, it is a fracture of clavicle. If you are asked commonest fracture in a child, then the answer will become green stick fracture of forearm bones. Green stick fracture of forearm bones. Let me quickly just show you what is a green stick fracture. Please have a look at this X-ray. This bone is ulna. This bone is radius. If you will see in this area, there will be a fracture in the radius. This is the fracture. But just see, this cortex of radius intact, but this cortex of radius broken. So only one cortex of radius is broken, the other cortex is intact. And radius is normally a straight bone. I hope you can appreciate bending of bone in this area. So basically what happens in children, that children tend to have a thick periosteum. So when an injury bends the bone, one cortex breaks, but the thick periosteum does not allow further bending of bone. So what you find in the X-ray, only one cortex broken, other cortex intact, and bending of the bone that is visible. So this classical pattern is what you call as green stick. I hope you will be able to recognize even from the X-rays. So please remember the commonest fracture pattern that you're going to see in a small child, it's going to be called as green stick fracture. And if you are asked the commonest fracture in adults, then you can keep vertebral fractures as the first option, but you can closely follow it up with a fracture of neck of femur, and you can closely follow this up with a fracture of distal end radius. Very common fracture. So that will be the answer if you are given the commonest fracture as well as the age is given and you are asked the answer. Now please understand, most of the examiners never like smiling children, so they never ask simple questions that which is the commonest fracture at birth, clavicle. No. When the examiners ask such a question, they generally complicate the scenario by adding on some extra information. Like the examiner would ask you most common fracture, he would give you the age of the patient, but now he will add on a short history of fall on outstretched hand. So the age of the patient is given, but now it is written that there is history of fall on outstretched hand. Means when the patient was having a fall, the hand was stretched like this. So basically examiner is now talking of fractures of the upper limb. So when you have this history fall on outstretched hand, then how to reach the answer? Well, you cannot have fall on outstretched hand at birth, so we straight away move to a small child. If your patient is a small child, and especially if the age of the child is given to be less than 10 years, then the commonest fracture that you are going to find in this child, fracture supracondylar humerus, a fracture of distal humerus. Very common fracture. Rather, I would say that if ever a child who is less than this age of 10 years, he ever comes to you with this history of fall on outstretched hand, take it to be fracture supracondylar humerus. Very common fracture. We'll talk in detail, but I hope you are clear with the message. Commonest fracture in a child, green stick fracture, but commonest fracture in the same child when you have this history fall on outstretched hand, supracondylar humerus. So the answer changes when you have this history fall on outstretched hand. If you are asked the commonest fracture in an adolescent with this history of fall on outstretched hand, then it would generally be a fracture of scaphoid. And if you are asked the commonest fracture in adult with this history of fall on outstretched hand, then please have no doubt it will of course be a fracture of distal end radius. Very common fracture. And yes, it is that same fracture that you also call as Colles fracture. A postmenopausal osteoporotic female fall on outstretched hand, Colles fracture, distal end radius fracture, unless proved otherwise. So that would be the list if the age of the patient is given, and along with it you have this history fall on outstretched hand. So please just take down the notes, and please remember the commonest fractures across all age groups, and when you have this history of fall on outstretched hand. Now once you are clear with fractures across all age groups, once you are clear with fractures in children also, I don't think we should miss another very important area, something about physeal injuries as well. Children tend to have growth plate that is technically called physis. Physis can be injured as well, and injuries to the growth plate, physeal injuries, they can also come as MCQs in your exams. So let me just brief you a little about these growth plate injuries in children. Now the best way to understand these growth plate injuries is just to understand their classification, that is called Salter-Harris classification. If you can just understand this classification, you will be clear with everything that concerns the injury to growth plate in children. Now these people, Salter and Harris, they basically divided the injuries of the growth plate into 5 types, and the basic idea behind this division, prognosis, end result, what happens in the end. So what they say, that someone gets type 1 injury, do nothing, कुछ करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, द चाइल्ड इज गोइंग टू बी ओके. बट यस, समवन गेट्स दिस टाइप 5 इंजरी, जो करना है कर लो, do whatever you want to, the child is never going to be okay. So that was the basic purpose behind this Salter-Harris classification. So you will get to know the purpose as I will dictate to you the Salter-Harris classification. जैसे जैसे मैं समझाऊंगा लिखवाऊंगा अपने आप समझ में आ जाएगा how this classification explains to you the prognosis. Now basically what is type 1 physeal injury? In type 1 physeal injury, epiphysis separates from metaphysis. So that is basically what is type 1 physeal injury, where the epiphysis separates from metaphysis. Please see, this is the epiphysis separating from metaphysis because the physis is injured. So that is what you call as type 1 physeal injury. But now see what is happening in type 2 physeal injury. This epiphysis is separating from metaphysis, but now this separating epiphysis is carrying with it this chip from metaphysis. So basically what happens in type 2 physeal injury? Separating epiphysis carries with it a chip of metaphysis. So that is basically what happens in type 2 physeal injuries. In type 1, epiphysis separates from metaphysis. In type 2, the separating epiphysis carries with it a chip of metaphysis. Now what happens in type 3 physeal injury? Please see. In type 1 and type 2, growth plate injured, but nothing wrong with this epiphysis. So please see what is happening in type 3. The physeal fracture, the growth plate fracture is now fracturing this epiphysis. So when the epiphysis gets broken, that is what is labeled as type 3. So you can just note down with me what is type 3 physeal injury. Fracture enters into epiphysis. So when the epiphysis gets broken, that is basically what you label as type 3 physeal injury. The fracture basically enters into epiphysis, and you can see what is happening in type 4. The fractured epiphysis, now the epiphysis is fractured again, and this fractured epiphysis now carries with it this chip from metaphysis. So that is what happens basically in type 4 physeal injury. Fractured epiphysis carries with it a chip from metaphysis. So that is what happens in type 4 physeal injury. The fractured epiphysis carries with it a chip from metaphysis. Quick look. Type 1, epiphysis separates from metaphysis. Type 2, separating epiphysis carries with it a chip from metaphysis. Now type 3, the physeal fracture fractures epiphysis. And in type 4, this fractured epiphysis carries with it a chip from metaphysis. So I hope you're clear with 4 types. Now please understand how this classification explains the prognosis. Let us suppose this bone is radius. If this bone is radius, distal to radius, you will have the wrist joint. Basically, epiphysis mostly articulate into another epiphysis. Epiphysis of a bone is basically a part of a joint. So what you have distal to the bone is a joint. Now growth plate injured in type 1 and type 2, but nothing wrong with the joint. But what is happening in type 3 and type 4? This epiphyseal fracture is entering into the joint. So basically type 3 and type 4, they are intra-articular injuries involving a joint. Now please understand that whenever joint gets involved by a fracture, the movement at the joint is gone. The range of motion of joint is gone. And if you don't reduce that fracture to the extent of 100%, even if you leave 2 millimeter of step in a joint, with the time the joint degenerates. A complication that you call as osteoarthritis. So that is what the classification says, that this type 3, this type 4, it is intra-articular injury, an injury involving the joint. So loss of joint movement, osteoarthritis, bad complications, bad prognosis. But type 1 and type 2, better prognosis. And that is how the classification explains to you the prognosis. So please note down with me. Type 3, type 4, intra-articular injuries. And hence you are going to find two things: loss of joint movement, one thing, osteoarthritis, second thing. So these are basically the complications of intra-articular injuries. So my message is clear to you. Fractures in the epiphysis, they are intra-articular injuries. Talk of loss of joint movement, osteoarthritis. Fractures in the metaphysis, that is cancellous bone, talk of malunion. And fractures in the diaphysis, talk of non-union. So please be very strict with this protocol. I show you a fracture in the diaphysis, speak of non-union as a complication. I speak of fracture in the metaphysis, talk of malunion as a complication. I speak of fracture in the epiphysis, talk of osteoarthritis, loss of joint movement. Don't go across the spectrum. These concepts hold true to most of the fractures in orthopedics. And perhaps that is how this classification explains the prognosis. And yes, if I just take it that this classification is basically guiding the prognosis, so going by the same formula, this type 5 should have the worst prognosis, and it does have, because this type 5 physeal injury is basically something called physeal crushing. Let me explain, and then let me come back to what is this type 5 physeal injury, physeal crushing. A child comes to you with a very classical history that doctor, I had fall from height. मैं छत से गिर गया हूँ, and there is pain in my knee. Now you click an X-ray and you don't see anything, because what happened during the fall? जैसे ये बच्चा गिरा, under the body weight, because of the impact of fall, the physis was crushed, rammed, jammed, finished. Now physis is just a horizontal line on X-ray, so X-ray was normal. So you labeled this child as sprain, strain, and you sent him back home. But the same child, he returns to your clinic 5 or 7 years down the line, and now he has a complaint that doctor, my one leg is shorter than the other. So basically what happened during the first episode, when he had the fall, the physis was crushed. It did not grow. So when he came back to you after 5 to 7 years, he had that limb length discrepancy, one leg shorter than the other. Now please understand that no doctor can make a dead thing come alive. मरी हुई चीज को कोई डॉक्टर जिंदा नहीं कर सकता. Whatever is dead is dead. So if the physis is crushed, that limb length deformity, that limb length discrepancy is inevitable, unpreventable. And that is what the classification says, that someone gets type 5 injury, जो करना है कर लो, you cannot prevent the deformity. So here the treatment will be treatment of resultant deformity. तो यहाँ पे resultant deformity की treatment इस type की treatment बन जाएगी. So please just note down with me little bit about type 5 physeal injury, that is also called physeal crushing. So that is what is type 5 physeal injury, physeal crushing. Well, it is a retrospective diagnosis from patient's history. तो पेशेंट की हिस्ट्री से उल्टा पता लगता है कि 4-5 साल पहले physeal crushing हुई थी. So it's basically a retrospective diagnosis from patient's history. The deformity in this type inevitable. अनप्रिवेंटेबल, यू कैनॉट प्रिवेंट दिस डिफॉर्मिटी। ये डिफॉर्मिटी होनी ही होनी है क्योंकि फाइजस क्रश हो गई है एंड नो डॉक्टर कैन मेक अ डेड थिंग कम अलाइव। हियर द डिफॉर्मिटी इज इनएविटेबल, मतलब होनी ही होनी है। सो दैट इज व्हाई यू से दैट you have the worst prognosis. And yes, as far as treatment of this type is concerned, it will simply be treat the resultant deformity. So treating the deformity will be the treatment because you cannot prevent the deformity, and that is why this type has the worst prognosis. So type 1, type 2 good prognosis, type 3, type 4 bad prognosis because they are intra-articular injuries, and type 5 worst prognosis. So that is how Salter-Harris classification guides to you the prognosis. And yes, if you are clear with the classification, let me also give you a couple of MCQs that generally trouble you on this classification. If you are asked the most common type of physical injury in the body, then the answer will be type 2. By and large, type 2 is the commonest type of physical injury in the body. If you are asked the commonest site of physical injury in the body, well, let me tell you, the commonest site is actually phalanx in the hand, closely followed by distal end radius. So phalanges in the hand closely followed by distal end of radius, they are the commonest site of physical injury in the body. So commonest type 2, and commonest site phalanx in the hand followed by distal end of radius. So please remember these MCQs on Salter-Harris classification. And just a small picture quiz. I think you know that the number of images that are now coming in your exams on an exponential rise, बढ़ती जा रही हैं. So quick look at an image also. So this is a physical injury at the distal end of radius. The epiphysis is separating from metaphysis, and I hope you can see that this separating epiphysis is carrying with it this chip from metaphysis. So type 2 physical injury, epiphysis separating from metaphysis with the chip of metaphysis, type 2 physical injury, and type 2 is the commonest type we have just discussed, and we have just discussed the distal end of radius, very common site. So very important X-ray. So I hope even from the X-rays you will be able to pick up Salter-Harris type of physical injuries. So that's all about all fractures across different age groups, fractures when you have history of fall on outstretched hand, and physical injuries that you find in children. Now if you are clear with this much, before I tell you the healing and treatment of a fracture, let me just quickly also tell you the stages of fracture healing, and then go on to tell you the treatment of a fracture. So how a fracture heals, that is what I am going to tell you. Okay, so basically now what I am going to explain to you are stages of fracture healing. And what I am going to do, I am just going to draw a small flow chart. You can just mug up this flow chart with me, draw this flow chart with me, and you will understand how a fracture heals. Now bone fractures, blood collects in that area, blood organizes, becomes a hematoma. So the first stage of fracture healing, that is basically hematoma formation. That is the first stage of fracture healing. Now please understand, this hematoma basically contains chemotactic factors. Now because of these chemotactic factors, fibroblasts penetrate into the hematoma, and once the fibroblasts penetrate into the hematoma, this hematoma is now basically called as granulation tissue. So that is the second stage of fracture healing, granulation tissue formation. Now please understand that this granulation tissue is basically full of growth factors. Granulation tissue has a lot of growth factors. Now because of these growth factors, the fibroblasts grow, mature, and these fibroblasts grow and mature, and they become osteoblasts. Now you already know that osteoblasts, bone forming cells. So these osteoblasts start forming immature bone that is called callus, and that is the third stage of fracture healing. So quick repetition. Bone fractures, bleeding occurs, hematoma forms. Hematoma has chemotactic factors, they invite in the fibroblasts, and fibroblasts turn the hematoma into granulation tissue. The growth factors of the granulation tissue change the fibroblasts into osteoblasts. Osteoblasts form immature bone that is called callus. Now please understand, this callus that has been formed is basically a soft structure. केलस बन भी जाता है तो फ्रैक्चर साइड पे मूवमेंट हो सकती है, क्योंकि केलस एक सॉफ्ट स्ट्रक्चर है. अब केलस को अगर हार्ड स्ट्रक्चर बनना है तो केलस में कैल्शियम डिपॉजिट होना है, बिकॉज फॉर एनीथिंग टू बी हार्ड इन द बॉडी इट मस्ट हैव कैल्शियम. टीथ स्ट्रॉन्ग बिकॉज दे हैव कैल्शियम. सो दैट इज व्हाट हैपन्स नेक्स्ट. That is exactly what happens next, that this callus now undergoes calcium deposition, or you can simply say that this callus now undergoes mineralization. So I mean to say calcium deposits in callus. Now once calcium deposits in callus becomes rigid hard, and this rigid hard callus is basically what you call as woven bone, or as some people better call it consolidated bone. So that is the fourth stage of fracture healing. Woven bone formation, consolidated bone formation, woven bone more popular term, and it is woven bone that is rigid hard. Now please understand, I have already told you that bone is basically a combination of calcium with collagen. तो वुवन बोन में कैल्शियम के साथ कोलेजन होनी चाहिए. एंड व्हाट इज द अरेंजमेंट ऑफ कोलेजन इन वुवन बोन? नाम में ही सारी कहानी है. वुवन, इंटरवुवन मतलब हैपहैज़र्ड. पर जब हम बोन का डायग्राम बनाते थे हम कोलेजन को ऐसे लेयर्स में बनाते थे. कोलेजन तो लेयर्स में बनाते थे और इनके बीच में वो सेल्स बनाते थे, ऑस्टियोब्लास्ट्स. देन डोंट फॉरगेट इसके बिल्कुल सेंटर में हम एक वो ब्लड वेसल बनाते थे, हेवर्शियन कैनाल. सो बेसिकली इन बोन कोलेजन इज नॉर्मली प्रेजेंट इन लेयर्स. सो इफ दिस वुवन बोन हैज टू बिकम अ नेचुरल बोन, अगर इसी वुवन बोन को नेचुरल बोन बनना है तो फिर इस कोलेजन को लेयर्स में अरेंज होना है. सो दैट इज व्हाट हैपन्स इन द एंड, दैट द कोलेजन becomes lamellar, arranges itself in layers, and once this happens you get the last stage of fracture healing, that is basically called remodeling. Please understand that bone is not a static structure, it is a dynamic structure. So our natural bones, they are always remodeling. हर रोज थोड़ा सा बोन का हिस्सा बोन ईटिंग सेल्स ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट खा जाते हैं, दे क्रिएट अ फ्रैक्चर. और हर रोज वो सेम हिस्सा ये ऑस्टियोब्लास्ट्स बना देते हैं, दे हील द फ्रैक्चर. सो बोन इज बेसिकली अ डायनामिक स्ट्रक्चर. इट इज replenishing itself every day. Some part of the bone eaten by osteoclast, every day that same part of the bone formed by osteoblast. So this is a naturally occurring cycle in the body. ये बॉडी में एक नेचुरली अकरिंग सा साइकिल होता है, और जब एक फ्रैक्चर हो जाता है बॉडी यूटिलाइजेस द सेम साइकिल इवन टू मेक अ फ्रैक्चर यूनाइट. सो अवर नेचुरल बोन इज ऑलवेज रिमॉडलिंग. दैट इज एन ऑनगोइंग स्टेज, बट दैट इज हाउ अ फ्रैक्चर यूनाइट्स. 5 stages of fracture healing. If you are clear with the stages of fracture healing, I think I can also quickly take you through the timing of these stages. A hematoma is completely organized in like 2 to 3 days. 2 से 3 दिन तक पूरा हेमेटोमा बन जाता है. ग्रैनुलेशन टिश्यू फॉर्मेशन इज कंप्लीट इन लाइक 2 to 3 वीक्स. 2 से 3 हफ्ते तक पूरा ग्रैनुलेशन टिश्यू बन जाता है. full callus formation generally takes around 2 to 3 months on an average. And mind you, ये जो मैं लिख रहा हूँ, it pertains to completion of stage. The callus is completely formed by like 2 to 3 months. Bone becomes rigid hard in like 2 to 3 years, and remodeling is an ongoing process that continues after 3 years for the life of the patient. So bone keeps on remodeling all the life after that 3 years. So if you remember this formula of 2 to 3, you can also memorize timing of various stages. So hematoma completely formed 2 to 3 days, granulation tissue 3 weeks, callus 3 months, woven bone 3 years, remodeling after 3 years. So with this formula of 2 to 3, you can also remember the timing of these stages. Now if you know the timing of these stages, you will also be able to answer some MCQs. अगर मैं ये पूछूं कि इनमें से एक्सरे पे सबसे पहले क्या चीज़ नज़र आएगी, आई मीन विच स्टेज यू विल फाइंड अर्लीस्ट ऑन एक्सरे? केलस ये एक्सरे पे सबसे पहले दिखता है. सो जस्ट सी, दिस इज द फ्रैक्चर लाइन एंड दिस वाइटिश शैडो दैट यू कैन सी ओवर हेयर, दैट इज केलस. So that is the first X-ray stage of union. But mind you, X-ray पे जो सबसे पहले दिखता है वो केलस होता है. बट केलस इज अ सॉफ्ट स्ट्रक्चर. केलस बन भी जाता है तो भी फ्रैक्चर साइट पे मूवमेंट हो सकती है. सो वेरी सिंपल. इफ यू आर आस्क्ड फर्स्ट क्लिनिकल स्टेज ऑफ यूनियन, मतलब जितना जोर लगाना लगा लो, फ्रैक्चर साइट मूव नहीं करने वाली. That clinical stage will become woven bone, because it is woven bone that is rigid hard. So first X-ray stage will be callus, but first clinical stage will be woven bone. So please remember this MCQ. Please remember this MCQ. Okay, please remember this MCQ, that if you are asked first X-ray stage of union, the answer will be callus. But if you are asked first clinical stage of union, the answer will be woven bone. तो फिर woven bone हो जाएगा आंसर. और हाँ, इसमें एक चीज़ तो क्लियर हो ही रही है कि पहले एक्सरे स्टेज आती है कि पहले क्लिनिकल स्टेज आती है. पहले एक्सरे वाली स्टेज आती है. तो बेसिकली फ्रैक्चर की हीलिंग देखनी है तो एक्सरे ज़्यादा जल्दी हीलिंग दिखाएगा. ओके, सो इफ़ यू आर आस्क्ड व्हेन कैन यू सी फर्स्ट साइन ऑफ केलस, केलस का पहला साइन कब दिखता है, व्हेन कैन यू सी द फर्स्ट साइन ऑफ केलस? सो यू कैन सी दैट केलस इज कंप्लीटली फॉर्म्ड बाय 3 months. The first sign will be visible at 3 weeks when granulation tissue will start becoming callus. So please remember that if you are asked when do you see first sign of callus, that will be approximately at 3 weeks. So when you are trying to notice healing of a fracture, no point of clicking the X-ray before 3 weeks, क्योंकि 3 हफ्ते से पहले healing बता ही नहीं सकते. Earliest sign of healing is callus and callus is earliest visible by 3 weeks. तो 3 हफ्ते पे callus नज़र आना शुरू होता है, उसके बाद ही तुम हीलिंग बता सकते हो. पहली एक्सरे स्टेज केलस फॉर्मेशन होती है और पहली क्लिनिकल स्टेज वूवन बोन फॉर्मेशन होती है. प्लीज रिमेंबर दैट अप. एंड यस, इफ यू आर क्लियर विद दिस साइकिल, you will also be able to understand delayed union and non-union. Callus is completely formed by like 3 months. 3 महीने पे पूरा केलस बन जाता है. So what the US FDA says कि 3 महीने पे पूरा केलस बन जाता है, but this is like American research. This is not universally applicable because people in developing countries may not have same rates of healing because they do not have the same physique, they do not have the same diet. तो उनको भी थोड़ा सा मार्जिन ऑफ एरर देना पड़ेगा. तो एक ग्रॉस बेसिस पे याद रख सकते हो कि केलस जो है वो हीलिंग का अर्लीस्ट साइन है. यू हैव नो केलस बाई 6 months. 6 महीने तक भी तुम्हें केलस नहीं दिख रहा. यू कैन कॉल दैट fracture has gone into delayed union. But when you find no callus even by 9 months, then that means that fracture has gone into non-union. So that is a gross definition. So no callus by 6 months, delayed union, and no callus even by 9 months, non-union. So that is a gross definition for delayed union, non-union. And yes, I must brief you that as far as this non-union is concerned, the commonest site in the body where you will find non-union, lower third tibia. By and large, in clinical practice, the commonest non-union you are going to see lower third of tibia. And if you are asked the commonest cause of non-union, the answer will be inadequate immobilization. इनएडिक्वेट इमोबिलाइजेशन, जब हम फ्रैक्चर को ठीक से इमोबिलाइज नहीं करते, दैट इज द कॉमनेस्ट कॉज ऑफ नॉन यूनियन. प्लीज रिमेंबर, माइक्रो मोशन, अगर फ्रैक्चर साइड पे बिल्कुल माइक्रो मूवमेंट होती है, ये यूनियन को इनकरेज करती है, बट ग्रॉस मोबिलिटी discourages union. So inadequate immobilization, gross immobility, that is the commonest cause of non-union, and the commonest site lower third of tibia. And I will also quickly take you through the X-ray signs of non-union. So this patient came to me 9 months after the fracture. So just see, even after 9 months you can see the fracture line. Look at the fracture margins, rounded, sclerotic, whitish, anything white on X-ray, that's called sclerotic. And see, this is callus, but see here, no callus, कोई callus नहीं दिख रहा. So what are the X-ray pointers to non-union? मैं एक बार ये भी बताता हूँ कि X-ray पे हम कैसे बताते हैं that we are dealing with a case of non-union. So please write down X-ray signs of non-union. Fracture line still visible at 9 months. 9 months पे भी फ्रैक्चर लाइन नजर आ रही होती है. देन एब्सेंस ऑफ केलस नजर नहीं आ रहा होता. देन फ्रैक्चर मार्जिन्स, you find them to be rounded and you find them to be sclerotic. Sclerotic means whitish. And let me tell you, late stages, fibrous tissue fills up the medullary canal, and what you find, that even the medullary canal, that is obliterated. So that is how you find non-union from an X-ray. A fracture line would still be visible by 9 months. There will be absence of callus. The fracture margins will be rounded and sclerotic, and in late stages even the medullary canal will be obliterated. So you can just see fracture line still visible, rounded whitish margins, no callus, and in late stages you won't even be able to see this medullary canal because fibrous tissue will fill up this medullary canal and it will be all obliterated. So that is how you make a diagnosis of non-union. And yes, if your diagnosis is non-union, if you think that you are dealing with the case of non-union, I must also tell you the treatment of any damn non-union. कि किसी भी non-union को हम treat किस तरीके से करते हैं, मैं एक बार वो भी बता देता हूँ. Let me tell you the crux, basic step will be bone grafting. Bone graft करना पड़ेगा. जैसे skin heal नहीं होती, हम उसे ग्राफ्ट कर देते हैं, स्किन ग्राफ्ट. बिल्कुल इसी तरह नॉन यूनियन का भी मैंडेटरी स्टेप बोन ग्राफ्टिंग होता है. बट अलॉन्ग विद इट यू हैव टू ट्रीट द कॉज ऑल्सो, वॉट एवर इज कॉजिंग नॉन यूनियन. लाइक द एक्सरे जस्ट शोड यू, नॉन यूनियन में पेशेंट ने अपना फ्रैक्चर फिक्स नहीं कराया था तो उसका फ्रैक्चर फिक्स करना है. बट कई बार ऐसा भी तो हो सकता है कि तुमने फ्रैक्चर फिक्स कर दिया बट फिर उसमें नॉन यूनियन हो गई. लाइक जस्ट सी, very nice series of X-ray. This patient landed up with a fracture in the lower third of humerus. So this bone is humerus. ये lower third में एक fracture हो गया. He went to some outside surgeon and that outside surgeon went ahead with fixation. उसने fracture को fix कर दिया है और बहुत अच्छे से fix किया है. Fracture line नजर भी नहीं आ रही. But this same patient, he was a chain smoker. बहुत smoking करता था. Smoking, endothelial damage, blood vessel injury. So something happened with the vascularity at the fracture site. So when he came to me after 3 months, the fracture line was still visible, rounded margins, no callus. So now he had become a case of non-union. So the step I did, I filled up this area with chips of bone. So I went ahead with bone grafting, but along with it, I asked him to stop smoking because that was the cause in his case. So I did bone grafting and I eliminated the cause, smoking, and that is what happened after 6 months. The cortical continuity back, the fracture line gone, the fracture has gone into union. So that is how you treat non-union. You go ahead with bone grafting and you treat the cause behind non-union. And as far as bone grafting is concerned, I must tell you the most common site for taking a bone graft, that is iliac crest. Iliac crest from the pelvis, that is the commonest site from where we harvest a bone graft. Please understand that you do have some spare bones in the body, like fibula, just a kind of a spare bone. But problem with fibula, that entire bone is basically diaphysis, and you know diaphysis is cortical bone. When we are to go with the grafting, we need cancellous bone, because it is cancellous bone that has better surface area, that has better vascularity. So we generally love to go with cancellous bone, and iliac crest is cancellous bone. So that is the commonest site for taking a bone graft. So that is how you should be dealing with non-union. Go with bone grafting and treat the cause. So if you are clear with the stages of fracture healing, and if you are clear how to manage delayed union, non-union, let me also now brief you how to treat a fracture so that you don't find delayed union, non-union, ताकि ये चीज़ें ना मिलें. फ्रैक्चर को कैसे ट्रीट करना है मैं एक बार ये भी समझा देता हूँ. Now the first aid in case of a fracture is to splint or to apply traction. Splint means you support that fracture with any equipment that is available to you. You apply a handkerchief, a dupatta, you apply a sling, you tie a wooden log. They are all splints. And a traction is also a splint. You give traction to a limb, the muscles around the fracture site tighten up, and the tightened muscles support the fracture. So splint and traction are interchangeable terms, and they are simple English words. Splint means support the fracture. So that should be the first thing you should do, support the fracture with whatever equipment you have. Now as doctors, you must be familiar with two types of splints that are used in orthopedics any damn place across the world. This first splint that I'm showing you is something called Thomas splint, and this second splint that I'm showing you over here is something called BB splint, a Böhler-Braun splint. So as doctors, you must be familiar with two special splints that are used in orthopedics any damn place across the world. जो मैंने पहले दिखाया था, that was something called a Thomas splint, और जो मैंने अभी बाद में दिखाया है, that is something called a Böhler-Braun splint. तो इन दो BB स्प्लिंट, शॉर्ट में BB स्प्लिंट भी कह देते हैं. ओके, तो इन दो स्प्लिंट्स के बारे में अच्छे से पता होना चाहिए. ओके, और हाँ, इन दोनों स्प्लिंट्स का मैं बेसिक पर्पस बता देता हूँ. टू स्प्लिंट lower limb fracture. So I'm going to say any damn fracture in the lower limb, pelvic fracture, hip fracture, femur fracture, knee injury, tibia fracture, any damn fracture in the lower limb, you can splint on either a Thomas splint or a BB splint. But what is the difference? वो समझना है. Please understand how a Thomas splint works. Let us suppose this patient has a fracture in the shaft of the femur. Now any fracture, there will be muscle spasm and there will be overriding of the bones. तो तुमने खींच के वो ओवरराइडिंग करेक्ट करनी होती है. अब अगर तुम इस लेग को खींचोगे तो फ्रैक्चर साइड पे मूवमेंट नहीं होगी क्योंकि मसल स्पाज्म में है. रादर पेशेंट नीचे आना शुरू हो जाएगा. सो दिस थॉमस स्प्लिंट हैज अ रिंग एट वन एंड. हम पेशेंट की लेग इस रिंग के अंदर डाल देते हैं. हम एक हाथ से इस रिंग को ऊपर को धक्का लगाते हैं और दूसरे हाथ से इस लेग को नीचे पुश करते हैं. ओके, सो लेग को हम नीचे पुल करते हैं, ट्रैक्शन लगती है और मरीज नीचे ना आए, ये रिंग ग्रॉइन में अटक जाता है और रिंग पेशेंट को ऊपर को पुश करता है तो काउंटर ट्रैक्शन मिल जाती है. सो हम फ्रैक्चर साइड को डिस्ट्रैक्ट करके अलाइन कर लेते हैं। एंड देन दिस रेडीमेड स्किन ट्रैक्शन किट इज अवेलेबल इन द मार्केट। ये हम पेशेंट के पैर पे अटैच कर देते हैं और एक बार फ्रैक्चर साइड डिस्ट्रैक्ट हो गई, हम पूरा खींच के इस रोप को स्प्लिंट पे टाई कर देते हैं, सो दैट इवन इफ वी लीव दिस सिस्टम, वट एवर ट्रैक्शन वी हैड गिवन, फिक्स्ड। So that is how Thomas splint works. It gives you something called fixed traction. You pull, you distract, you tie the rope on the splint, traction is fixed. But please see how a BB splint works. In BB splint, like suppose this patient has a fracture in the femur. I have put a pin in the bone and then attached a stirrup. And then a wire is going over a pulley to which a weight has been attached. So this weight will distract the femur. मरीज नीचे ना आए, वी हैव एलिवेटेड द फुट एंड ऑफ द बेड, हमने बेड का फुट एंड एलिवेट कर दिया है, तो ग्रेविटी पेशेंट को नीचे खींच के काउंटर ट्रैक्शन भी दे देती है। सो दिस इज हाउ अ बीबी स्प्लिंट वर्क्स। आई जस्ट शो यू द मैग्नीफाइड वर्जन आल्सो। सो द फुट एंड इज एलिवेटेड ताकि पेशेंट का वेट उसे पीछे को पुश करे। ये टिबिया में एक पिन डल गया है और इस पिन से एक स्टिरअप अटैच हो गया, स्टिरअप से ये वेट अटैच हो गया। सो दिस वेट विल डिस्ट्रैक्ट एंड अलाइन द फ्रैक्चर। This is how a BB splint works, and this is called balanced traction, because here you can alter this weight to change the amount of traction. तो weight को alter करके traction का amount change कर सकते हो. This is what you call as balanced traction. So what I'm trying to tell you that Thomas splint will work on a principle called fixed traction, and BB splint will provide you balanced traction. ये दोनों का बेसिक फर्क होता है कि थॉमस स्प्लिंट पे तुम ट्रैक्शन चेंज नहीं कर सकते, एक बार खींचा टाई कर दिया फिक्स, बट बीबी स्प्लिंट पे तुम ट्रैक्शन का अमाउंट चेंज कर सकते हो. यू कैन बैलेंस ट्रैक्शन विद चेंजिंग द अमाउंट ऑफ द वेट. So these are basically types of tractions: fixed traction, balanced traction. Fixed traction you generally get on Thomas splint, and balanced traction you generally find on BB splint. And yes, apparently it seems कि बैलेंस ट्रैक्शन ज़्यादा अच्छी है क्योंकि ट्रैक्शन का अमाउंट चेंज कर सकते हो. बट एक चीज़ समझना कि अगर हमने एक पेशेंट को बीबी स्प्लिंट लगा दिया है तो उसे ट्रांसपोर्ट करना बहुत मुश्किल है, क्योंकि बेड भी इस सिस्टम का पार्ट बन गया है, बहुत बड़ा सिस्टम है. बट ये देखो, थॉमस स्प्लिंट में ट्रैक्शन सिर्फ स्प्लिंट पे फिक्स हो गई है, तो पेशेंट को मोबिलाइज करना है तो सिर्फ स्प्लिंट ही साथ में भेजना है. तो बहुत सिंपल सा फंडा है कि हम कैसे डिसाइड करते हैं कौन सा स्प्लिंट यूज़ करना है. जब हमें ट्रांसपोर्टेशन करनी होती है हम फिक्स ट्रैक्शन यूज़ कर लेते हैं, क्योंकि ट्रैक्शन स्प्लिंट पे टाई हो गई है, चलने फिरने में, भेजने में, इधर जाने में ख़राब नहीं होने वाली. पर जब पेशेंट को वार्ड में वेट करना है अपनी टर्न के लिए, उसकी सर्जरी डिले हो गई है किसी रीज़न से, तो बैलेंस ट्रैक्शन को प्रेफर कर लेते हैं. सो बेसिकली पेशेंट कम्स टू अस इन द इमरजेंसी, वी यूज़ द थॉमस स्प्लिंट, ट्रांसपोर्ट हिम टू डिफरेंट प्लेसेस, एनास्थेटिक असेसमेंट होनी है, एक्सरेज क्लिक होने हैं, वार्ड में जाना है, ओटी में जाना है, अप्लाई द थॉमस स्प्लिंट. पेशेंट हैज सम कार्डियक इशू, पेशेंट हैज सम chronic disease, patient has coronavirus, patient has a disease, he cannot be operated, he has to wait for 1 month, he has to wait for 2 weeks, he has to wait for 3 weeks. Now the better system to choose, BB splint. So that is how we decide which splint to choose. एमरजेंसी है, ट्रांसपोर्ट करना है, थॉमस स्प्लिंट. पेशेंट को वार्ड में सीडेंटरी लेटाना है, BB splint. Okay, and yes, please do not confuse the types of splints with the types of with the types of tractions with the modes of traction. कि जब हमें ट्रैक्शन लगानी होती है तो लगाने का क्या मोड होता है. प्लीज़ अंडरस्टैंड, जब हमें ट्रैक्शन लगानी होती है तो 2 तरीके होते हैं. एक तो ना मार्केट में ये रेडीमेड स्किन ट्रैक्शन किट आती है, हम इससे ट्रैक्शन लगा सकते हैं. On a Thomas splint also we can use the skin traction kit, and on a BB splint also we can put traction with the skin traction kit. या दूसरा तरीका क्या होता है ट्रैक्शन लगाने का कि बोन के अंदर एक पिन डाल दो और इस पिन से ट्रैक्शन लगा दो. दिस इज स्केलेटल ट्रैक्शन. तो बेसिकली तुम्हें ट्रैक्शन देनी है तो स्केलेटली भी दे सकते हो और स्किन ट्रैक्शन किट के साथ भी दे सकते हो. सो बेसिकली देयर आर 2 मोड्स ऑफ ट्रैक्शन. वन इज स्किन ट्रैक्शन and one is skeletal traction. So how do we decide which mode of traction to choose? Well, let me tell you, a skin traction can maximum sustain a weight up to 6 kg, but with skeletal traction you can go up to 15 to 20 kg. So a patient has come to me, small child, old, frail, elderly, माइनर फ्रैक्चर, प्यूबिक रेमाई फ्रैक्चर, मुझे ज़्यादा ट्रैक्शन नहीं चाहिए, go with the skin traction kit. But the patient was come to me, muscular patient, young adult male, major bone fracture, femur fracture, मुझे बहुत सारी ट्रैक्शन चाहिए, skeletal traction. तो कितनी फोर्स लगानी है इससे मोड डिसाइड कर लेते हैं. पेशेंट को ट्रांसपोर्ट करना है नहीं करना इससे टाइप डिसाइड कर लेते हैं. ट्रांसपोर्ट करना है फिक्स ट्रैक्शन थॉमस स्प्लिंट, ट्रांसपोर्ट नहीं करना बैलेंस ट्रैक्शन बीबी स्प्लिंट. कम ट्रैक्शन लगानी है स्किन ट्रैक्शन किट, ज़्यादा ट्रैक्शन लगानी है skeletal traction. So that's how you splint the fracture, you decrease the pain, mobilize the patient, get the X-ray done, and once you get the X-ray done, now you have the final diagnosis with you, and once you have the final diagnosis with you, now you go with the definitive management, the final management. So now what I'm going to explain to you, the universal concept of fracture management. I mean, how do you manage any damn fracture in orthopedics? अब मैं वो समझाने लगा हूँ. But before I explain to you this universal concept of fracture management, let me just brief you on a small thing that I just missed. I just did not discuss two important things, something called open fracture and something called closed fracture. Basically, what is open fracture? What is closed fracture? Open fracture means that fracture hematoma drains into external environment. From a wound nearby the fracture, and this will be vice versa. No wound fracture hematoma not drained, close fracture. तो मैंने ये दो टर्म्स अभी तक टच नहीं की थी, थोड़ा सा मैं ये समझाना चाहूँगा. ना प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट इज ओपन फ्रैक्चर. ओपन फ्रैक्चर मीन्स फ्रैक्चर के आसपास कहीं एक वुंड है और उस वुंड में से फ्रैक्चर हेमेटोमा ड्रेन हो रहा है. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, द वुंड मे नॉट बी ओवर द फ्रैक्चर साइट और द फ्रैक्चर माइट नॉट बी कमिंग आउट ऑफ दैट वुंड. But if fracture hematoma is coming out of that wound, the fracture will be labeled as open fracture. Otherwise, the fracture will be labeled as closed fracture. Now, absolutely based upon the same concept, we use some terms in the treatment of a fracture. Closed reduction, open reduction, internal fixation, external fixation. वो चीज़ें मैं समझाने लगा हूँ. So what I'm basically going to explain to you is the universal concept of fracture management, that how do you manage any damn fracture in orthopedics. मैं एक बार वो समझाने लगा हूँ. Now please understand how to treat any damn fracture in orthopedics. Suppose someone comes to me with this fracture in the forearm bones. One assistant pulls in this direction, the other assistant pulls in the opposite direction, and then I stand right in the center manipulating the two bones in an attempt to align the two bones, in an attempt to reduce the fracture. While I am manipulating the fracture, I am constantly looking at an X-ray machine that I have with me in the emergency, something that is called C-arm image intensifier. So I am manipulating the fracture, I am looking at the X-ray. The moment my X-ray machine tells me that the two bones are in one line, I quickly take up a plaster of Paris bandage and I wrap it over the fracture site. This type of treatment, I simply call it as close reduction and plaster of Paris application. Close reduction because I have not drained the fracture hematoma, and plaster of Paris application because I have fixed the bone with plaster of Paris. So that is basically the first step, close reduction and plaster of Paris application. But please understand what happens in some scenarios. कुछ सिनारियोज में क्या होता है, क्लोज रिडक्शन इज नॉट फिजिबल, क्लोज रिडक्शन हो ही नहीं पाती. like just understand, I am manipulating in an attempt to reduce the fracture, but fracture reduce ही नहीं हो रहा क्योंकि बीच में कोई soft tissue फंस गया. So muscle is entrapped at the fracture site, a ligament or a vessel or a nerve is entrapped at the fracture site. तो अगर फ्रैक्चर साइट में कुछ फंस जाएगा, मैं जितना मर्जी कोशिश कर लूँ, फ्रैक्चर अलाइन ही नहीं होने वाला. सो नाउ आई विल बी लेफ्ट विद नो ऑप्शन. आई विल हैव टू गिव एन इंसिजन, open up the fracture site, take out the intervening muscle, but the moment I take out the intervening muscle, the hematoma will be drained. So now this reduction will be called as open reduction. But please understand, मैंने फ्रैक्चर को खोल लिया, the fracture is in front of me. Now it will be foolish कि मैं फिर से फ्रैक्चर को बंद कर दूं और फिर से लड़ रहा हूं, झगड़ रहा हूं और सियाम को देख रहा हूं. अगर मैंने फ्रैक्चर को खोल ही लिया है, why not fix the fracture? Fix it with a nail, fix it with a plate, put metal inside the skin, internal fixation. So that is what I do. I first try to go with close reduction and plaster of Paris application, but when this close reduction is not possible, I am bound to move to open reduction, internal fixation. And I hope you are clear. What is meant by this word open reduction? Open reduction means that you give a skin incision that drains fracture hematoma. That is what you call as open reduction. And this word internal fixation means that you fix bone with metal placed इनसाइड दी स्किन. जब हम बोन को एक मेटल के साथ फिक्स करते हैं जो स्किन के इनसाइड प्लेस होता है, दैट इज कॉल्ड इंटरनल फिक्सेशन. सो दैट इज व्हाट आई डू ऑन अ नॉर्मल बेसिस. आई फर्स्ट ट्राई टू गो विद द क्लोज रिडक्शन एंड प्लास्टर एप्लीकेशन, बट व्हेन दिस क्लोज रिडक्शन इज नॉट पॉसिबल, आई एम बाउंड टू शिफ्ट टू ओपन रिडक्शन, इंटरनल फिक्सेशन. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड. आई डोंट हैव थिंक यू शुड हैव अ क्वेरी कि पहले क्लोज रिडक्शन क्यों करनी है. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, क्लोज रिडक्शन प्लास्टर एप्लीकेशन कंजर्वेटिव ऑप्शन, ओपन रिडक्शन स्किन इंसिजन सर्जिकल ऑप्शन. वी नेवर कीप सर्जरी एज द फर्स्ट चॉइस. एंड देन प्लीज don't forget first stage of fracture healing, हेमेटोमा फॉर्मेशन. तो अगर हम ओपन रिडक्शन करेंगे तो हेमेटोमा ड्रेन हो जाएगा. अब अगर फ्रैक्चर ने हील होना है तो हेमेटोमा ने दोबारा बनना है. हेमेटोमा डज नॉट फॉर्म अगेन, डिलेड यूनियन, नॉन यूनियन. सो चांसेस ऑफ यूनियन ऑल्सो गो डाउन व्हेन यू गो विद ओपन रिडक्शन. सो आवर फर्स्ट स्टेप इज ऑलवेज क्लोज रिडक्शन, बट व्हेन दिस क्लोज रिडक्शन इज नॉट फिजिबल, we are bound to move to open reduction, internal fixation. And I think it is common sense कि जहाँ जहाँ हम वर्ड ओपन रिडक्शन यूज़ करेंगे वहाँ पे हम वर्ड इंटरनल फिक्सेशन यूज़ करेंगे, क्योंकि ओपन कर ही लिया फ्रैक्चर को तो फिक्स भी कर दो. कॉमन सेंस. So that is how you treat any damn fracture in orthopedics. You first try to go with close reduction plaster application, but when this close reduction is not possible, you shift it to open reduction, internal fixation, where the word open reduction basically means you give a skin incision that drains the fracture hematoma, and where the word internal fixation basically means you fix the bone with metal placed inside the skin. So that is how you treat any damn fracture in orthopedics. Now let me tell you a latest treatment option that has now come into the market. आजकल एक और ट्रीटमेंट ऑप्शन आ गई है, दैट इज समथिंग कॉल्ड क्लोज रिडक्शन इंटरनल फिक्सेशन. ये भी एक ट्रीटमेंट ऑप्शन आ गई है. क्लोज रिडक्शन, नो इंसिजन, इंटरनल फिक्सेशन, मेटल इनसाइड द स्किन. मैंने इंसिजन भी नहीं दिया, स्किन के अंदर मेटल डाल दिया. ये कैसे हो सकता है? Well, let me tell you, even this is possible today, but it is possible only at few places in the body. I'll just give you the classical example. मैं एक बार एग्जाम्पल दिखा देता हूँ, फिर काम की चीज़ लिख लेंगे. जो क्लोज रिडक्शन इंटरनल फिक्सेशन की क्लासिकल एग्जाम्पल होती है, दैट इज नेलिंग अ लॉन्ग बोन. जैसे हम लॉन्ग बोन्स को क्लासिकली नेल करते हैं, दैट इज क्लोज रिडक्शन इंटरनल फिक्सेशन. सो हाउ डू वी नेल अ लॉन्ग बोन? एक बार मैं ये समझा रहा हूँ, प्लीज देखना. दिस इज फीमर and this patient has landed up with a fracture in the femur, and I have decided to nail the femur. So what I am going to do, this is greater trochanter. I am going to give 1 centimeter incision over the greater trochanter, and I am going to introduce my nail into the shaft of femur. Then I am going to hammer this nail in मैं इसे हैमर करता जाऊंगा जब तक ये नेल फ्रैक्चर साइट पे नहीं पहुंच जाती, एंड आई विल बी लुकिंग अंडर द सीएम एक्सरे मशीन की फ्रैक्चर साइट पे पहुंच गई है. नाउ द मोमेंट दिस नेल रीचेस द फ्रैक्चर साइट, माय असिस्टेंट will manipulate the femur in an attempt to align the femur, and the moment I feel the femur is aligned, the two bones have come in one line, I will quickly hammer this nail in so that the nail enters into the distal fragment and the fracture is fixed. Now please understand, in this whole surgery my incision was over the greater trochanter, 1 centimeter incision, but the fracture hematoma is over the shaft of femur. So this small incision at the top is unable to drain this hematoma over the shaft. So this becomes closed reduction. But you have metal inside the bone, nail inside the bone, internal fixation. So that is how you call this as closed reduction, internal fixation, because the incision that you give does not drain fracture hematoma. That is the essence behind closed reduction, internal fixation. The second classical example is a fracture of neck of femur. तो कई बार कुछ यंग लोगों में ये नेक फीमर का यहाँ फ्रैक्चर हो जाता है, थाई की एंटीरियर साइड पे हेमेटोमा बन जाता है. हम थाई की लैटरल साइड पे 0.5 सेंटीमीटर का इंसिजन देते हैं और परक्यूटेनियसली 2 या 3 स्क्रूज फ्रैक्चर साइड के क्रॉस पास कर देते हैं. दैट स्क्रू जस्ट नीड्स अ स्टैब इंसिजन. तो उस इंसिजन में से जो थाई के बिल्कुल लैटरल साइड पे होता है, उससे ये थाई के फ्रंट का हेमेटोमा ड्रेन नहीं होता. सो अगेन क्लोज रिडक्शन, बट स्क्रू इनसाइड द बोन, इंटरनल फिक्सेशन. द थर्ड क्लासिकल एग्जांपल, सुप्राकॉन्डाइलर ह्यूमरस फ्रैक्चर. ये डिस्टल ह्यूमरस का फ्रैक्चर होता है, छोटे बच्चों में मिलता है. हम पहले फोरआर्म को मूव करते हैं, फ्रैक्चर को अलाइन करते हैं, देन वी टेक दो शार्प वायर्स, तिखी वायर्स होती हैं, के वायर्स. हम 2-3 वायर्स फ्रैक्चर के क्रॉस ड्रिल कर देते हैं. अब वायर इज लाइक अ नीडल. एक नीडल को पास करने के लिए तुम्हें इंसिजन देने की जरूरत नहीं है. वायर को स्किन पे रखो, डायरेक्टली ड्रिल कर दो, तो जब मैंने इंसिजन दिया ही नहीं, हेमेटोमा ड्रेन ही नहीं होगा, क्लोज रिडक्शन. बट वायर इनसाइड द बोन, इंटरनल फिक्सेशन. So basically you use this word close reduction, internal fixation at all those places where your skin incision does not drain fracture hematoma. So please note down with me that treatment at 3 situations is called close reduction, internal fixation. इसके examples note कर लो. The first example, nailing a long bone. The second example, screw fixation in fracture neck of femur. This is also close reduction, internal fixation. And third example, that is K-wire fixation in fracture supracondylar humerus. So treatment at 3 situations in the body, we label it as close reduction, internal fixation, that is nailing a long bone, screw fixation in fracture neck of femur, and K-wire fixation in fracture supracondylar humerus, because at these places skin incision does not drain fracture hematoma, because at these 3 places your skin incision does not drain fracture hematoma. So that is how to treat any damn fracture in orthopedics. You first try to go with close reduction and plaster application. If close reduction is not possible, you shift to open reduction, internal fixation. But if you want to nail a long bone, you want to put screw in neck of femur, you want to put K-wire in supracondylar humerus fracture, then simply call the treatment as close reduction, internal fixation, because at these 3 places your skin incision is not going to drain fracture hematoma. So that is how you treat any damn fracture in orthopedics, and this universal concept applies to every damn fracture in orthopedics. एनी डैम फ्रैक्चर आई एम गोइंग टू टीच यू. मतलब मैं किसी भी फ्रैक्चर की बात करूंगा, मैं इसी कॉन्सेप्ट के साथ उसकी ट्रीटमेंट की बात करूंगा, एक्सेप्ट जस्ट वन एक्सेप्शन, द ओनली एक्सेप्शन टू दिस प्रिंसिपल. मतलब सिर्फ एक ही फ्रैक्चर होता है जो इस प्रिंसिपल पे मैनेज नहीं होता, एंड दैट फ्रैक्चर दैट्स बेसिकली फ्रैक्चर्स ऑफ नेसेसिटी. फ्रैक्चर्स ऑफ नेसेसिटी इस प्रिंसिपल पे मैनेज नहीं होते, क्योंकि फ्रैक्चर्स ऑफ नेसेसिटी जो होते हैं दीज आर दोज फ्रैक्चर्स वेयर द फर्स्ट स्टेप ऑफ ट्रीटमेंट that is open reduction, internal fixation. So those fractures where the first step of treatment is open reduction, internal fixation, they are basically called fractures of necessity. तो ये सिर्फ एक एक्सेप्शन होते हैं, इन फ्रैक्चर्स में यूनिवर्सल कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं लगेगा, अदरवाइज every damn fracture that will be managed by this universal concept. So इस कॉन्सेप्ट पे किन फ्रैक्चर्स को ट्रीट नहीं करना, उन्हें हम फ्रैक्चर्स ऑफ नेसेसिटी कहते हैं. इनमें सिर्फ 3 फ्रैक्चर्स आते हैं. इसमें जो पहले फ्रैक्चर्स आते हैं दे आर इंट्रा आर्टिकुलर फ्रैक्चर्स, अ फ्रैक्चर वायलेटिंग अ जॉइंट. इसमें जो दूसरे 2 फ्रैक्चर्स आते हैं दैट इज समथिंग कॉल्ड ग्लेजी फ्रैक्चर एंड समथिंग कॉल्ड मोंटेजिया फ्रैक्चर. ये भी फ्रैक्चर ऑफ नेसेसिटी होते हैं. इनमें भी ओपन रिडक्शन, इंटरनल फिक्सेशन करते हैं. और इसमें एक लास्ट एग्जांपल आती है दैट इज अ फ्रैक्चर ऑफ लैटरल कॉन्डाइल ह्यूमरस. दिस इज ऑल्सो नॉट मैनेज्ड बाय यूनिवर्सल कॉन्सेप्ट. इन 3 फ्रैक्चर्स में हम पहला स्टेप ही ओपन रिडक्शन, इंटरनल फिक्सेशन करते हैं. क्यों मैं एक लाइन भी बता देता हूँ. पहले अबाउट इंट्रा आर्टिकुलर फ्रैक्चर्स, वैसे मैं पहले बता चुका हूँ that whenever a fracture is violating a joint, intra-articular fracture means violating a joint, it is mandatory that we bring about 100% reduction, because even if we leave 2 millimeter of step in a joint, हम 2 मिलीमीटर का भी स्टेप छोड़ देते हैं, with the time the joint degenerates osteoarthritis. सो इंट्रा-आर्टिकुलर फ्रैक्चर्स में हमें एनाटॉमिकल रिडक्शन करनी है, 100% रिडक्शन करनी है, एंड 100% रिडक्शन कैन नेवर बी अचीव्ड बाय क्लोज रिडक्शन. अगर 100% रिडक्शन करनी है वी विल हैव टू गो विद ओपन रिडक्शन. सो दैट इज व्हाई इंट्रा-आर्टिकुलर फ्रैक्चर्स दे आर फ्रैक्चर्स ऑफ नेसेसिटी. लिख सकते हो बिकॉज दे नीड एनाटॉमिकल रिडक्शन, बिकॉज दे नीड एनाटॉमिकल 100% रिडक्शन, इसलिए ये ओपन रिडक्शन से ट्रीट होते हैं. नाउ व्हाई ग्लेजी एंड मोंटेजिया दे आर फ्रैक्चर्स ऑफ नेसेसिटी. लेट मी फर्स्ट एक्सप्लेन एंड देन लेट मी डिक्टेट. एक बार मैं समझा रहा हूँ, एक बार मैं लिखवा रहा हूँ. ये रेडियस है, लोअर थर्ड में रेडियस फ्रैक्चर हो गई, ग्लेजी फ्रैक्चर. ये रेडियस है, ये अल्ना है, अपर थर्ड में अल्ना फ्रैक्चर हो गई, मोंटेजिया फ्रैक्चर. सो ग्रॉसली देखें, लोअर थर्ड में रेडियस टूट गई, ग्लेजी फ्रैक्चर, अपर थर्ड में अल्ना ब्रेक हो गई, मोंटेजिया फ्रैक्चर. बट इन्हें हम प्लास्टर से क्यों नहीं मैनेज कर सकते? प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, रेडियस एंड अल्ना आर 2 बोन्स lying side by side and they are nearly of equal length. They are united proximally, proximal radioulnar joint. They are united distally, distal radioulnar joint. तो लगभग बराबर साइज की बोन्स हैं और साइड बाई साइड पड़ी हैं. Now just imagine 2 pillars between floor and roof. फ्लोर और रूफ के बीच में 2 पिलर्स हैं इक्वल लेंथ के. एक पिलर ब्रेक हो गया और मसल फोर्सेस के कारण ओवरराइड कर गया. तो जब 2 बराबर लेंथ के पिलर्स हैं, सिर्फ एक पिलर ब्रेक होकर ओवरराइड करेगा तो ऊपर या नीचे का एक जॉइंट डिसलोकेट होगा. सो दैट इज द प्रॉब्लम, बट व्हेन ओनली वन बोन ब्रेक्स द नियरेस्ट रेडियोल्नर जॉइंट डिसलोकेट्स. लाइक जस्ट हैव अ लुक, ये लोअर थर्ड में रेडियस टूटी, बोन ओवरराइड कर गई, ये रेडियोल्नर जॉइंट डिसलोकेट हो गया. ये अपर थर्ड में अल्ना टूटी, ओवरराइड कर गई, ये रेडियोल्नर जॉइंट डिसलोकेट हो गया. सो द प्रॉब्लम विद दीज ग्लेजी एंड मोंटेजिया फ्रैक्चर्स, यू हैव रेडियोल्नर जॉइंट डिसलोकेशंस. तो इसकी ट्रीटमेंट में सिर्फ फ्रैक्चर को फिक्स नहीं करना, जॉइंट को भी रिड्यूस करना है. सो यू विल अगेन हैव टू गो विद ओपन रिडक्शन. सो प्लीज एटलीस्ट नोट डाउन विद मी फर्स्ट द डेफिनेशंस. इनकी डेफिनेशंस नोट कर लो. सो प्लीज जस्ट नोट डाउन व्हाट इज अ ग्लेजी फ्रैक्चर. ग्लेजी फ्रैक्चर क्या होता है वो नोट डाउन कर लो. फ्रैक्चर ऑफ lower third radius with dislocation of distal radioulnar joint. और मोंटेजिया फ्रैक्चर क्या होता है वो भी नोट कर लो. fracture of proximal third ulna with dislocation of proximal radioulnar joint. So lower third radius breaks, distal radioulnar joint dislocates, glazy fracture. Proximal ulna breaks, proximal radioulnar joint dislocates, Monteggia fracture. और इसी के साथ साथ लिख लो that since these fractures are associated with radioulnar joint dislocations, they are managed by open reduction, internal fixation. That is why they are fractures of necessity, because these fractures, they are associated with radioulnar joint dislocations. So since these fractures, they are associated with radioulnar joint dislocations, they are managed by open reduction, internal fixation. And in the end, while lateral condyle humerus is a fracture of necessity, treatment for this fracture treatment is open reduction, internal fixation for lateral condyle humerus, because here you have to prevent non-union. तो lateral condyle humerus में हमने non-union prevent करनी होती है, इसलिए हम इसे open reduction, internal fixation से treat करते हैं. So that is why this is a fracture of necessity. और मैं बता भी देता हूँ reasons for non-union in this fracture of lateral condyle of humerus. इसके नॉन यूनियन के मैं एक बार रीजंस भी बता देता हूँ. रीजंस फॉर नॉन यूनियन इन दिस फ्रैक्चर ऑफ lateral condyle of humerus. First reason, please understand, this lateral epicondyle of humerus has the attachment of all extensors of forearm, common extensor origin. तो forearm के जितने भी extensors होते हैं वो lateral epicondyle humerus से start होते हैं. तो जब भी यहाँ fracture होता है, this fragment is blown away by the pull of common extensor origin. So you have massive displacement, and a massive displacement can never be handled by close reduction. Massive displacement को correct करना है, you will have to go with open reduction. So please write down the reasons for non-union lateral condyle of humerus. पहला reason, massive displacement. Caused by pull of common extensor origin. That is the first reason for non-union, massive displacement caused by pull of common extensor origin. The second reason for non-union, poor blood supply. Poor blood supply. ब्लड सप्लाई भी इस एरिया की बहुत अच्छी नहीं होती, इसलिए भी नॉन यूनियन के चांसेस ज़्यादा रहते हैं. एंड द थर्ड वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रीजन, लैटरल कॉन्डाइल इज इंट्रा कैप्सूलर. लैटरल कॉन्डाइल इज इंट्रा कैप्सूलर. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड. What is meant by this term lateral epicondyle is intracapsular. So this is the distal humerus, this is the capitulum, this is the trochlea, this is the radial head articulating with the capitulum, and this is the oligocone process of ulna articulating with the trochlea. Okay, so that is the anatomy of the elbow joint. Now this is the capsule of the elbow joint. So you can very well imagine that if there will be a fracture in this lateral epicondyle, it will be within the capsule but not in the joint, because joint is between the capitulum and the radial head. So this fracture of lateral condyle will be intracapsular but not intra-articular. So that is what I am trying to explain to you, that lateral condyle is intracapsular, वो कैप्सूल के अंदर होता है. Hence it is lined by synovial fluid, क्योंकि कैप्सूल के अंदर synovial fluid होता है. Lateral condyle is intracapsular, hence it is lined by synovial fluid. And let me tell you, our research has told us दैट दिस साइनोवियल फ्लूइड इनहिबिट्स केलस फॉर्मेशन, कि जो साइनोवियल फ्लूइड होता है ये केलस फॉर्मेशन को इनहिबिट करता है, इसलिए भी नॉन यूनियन हो जाती है इस फ्रैक्चर में बिकॉज ऑफ दिस इंटरकैप्सुलर नेचर. नाउ यू गो बाय ओपन रिडक्शन, you will correct the massive displacement, you will drain out the synovial fluid, you will be reversing these fractures. तो ये factors भी reverse हो जाएंगे. So that is the whole reason that this fracture of lateral condyle of humerus, we prefer to straight away go with open reduction internal fixation. Otherwise every other fracture we first try to go with closed reduction. Okay, so just summarizing this universal concept with you, how to treat any damn fracture in orthopedics. किसी भी फ्रैक्चर को किस तरीके से ट्रीट करना है. Well, let me tell you, the first step will always be close reduction and plaster application. Close reduction हो ही नहीं पाएगी तो shift to open reduction internal fixation. But yes, if you want to nail a long bone, put screws in neck of femur, put K-bars in supracondylar humerus fracture, then call the treatment as close reduction internal fixation. तो फिर उसे close reduction internal fixation बोल दो, like nailing of a long bone, screw fixation, K-bar fixation, supracondylar humerus, क्योंकि ये तीन ऐसी situations हैं जहाँ पे skin incisions fracture hematoma को ट्रेन नहीं करते. और हाँ, अगर तुम्हें फर्स्ट स्टेप ओपन रिडक्शन इंटरनल फिक्सेशन रखना है तो फिर वो फ्रैक्चर ऑफ नेसेसिटी होना चाहिए. 3 एग्जांपल्स: इंट्रा-आर्टिकुलर फ्रैक्चर्स बिकॉज दे नीड 100% रिडक्शन, then Glazy and Montegia fractures because they have radial nerve joint dislocations, and then a lateral condyle of humerus fracture because otherwise it will go into non-union for the reasons you obviously know, until unless you manage it by open reduction internal fixation. So that is how you treat any damn fracture in orthopedics. And yes, I must also tell you that this whole universal concept is only a concept for closed fractures. ये जो पूरा का पूरा मैंने यूनिवर्सल कॉन्सेप्ट बताया है, this is basically telling you treatment in case of closed fractures. ये open fractures का treatment option नहीं है. Please understand, open fractures there is a wound. The fracture is communicating with the environment from the wound because hematoma is going into the environment. So basically staph aureus of the environment have entered the fracture site. वो पहली fracture site पे पहुंच चुके हैं. Now please understand that these implants that we use, these metals that we use to fix a bone, they are roofs for the microorganisms. जो microorganisms इस implant पे चले जाते हैं, they can never be eliminated because ये जो implant है इसमें blood vessels नहीं होती. So neither can antibodies nor can antibiotics reach these implants. So whatever is settled on the implant can only be removed with implant removal. So इसलिए हम open fracture में कभी भी फ्रैक्चर साइट के ऊपर इम्प्लांट नहीं डालते, एंड ओपन फ्रैक्चर में हम क्लोज रिडक्शन नाम की चीज़ ही नहीं यूज़ कर सकते. इट इज़ प्रिज्यूम्ड कि रिडक्शन विल बी ओपन रिडक्शन बिकॉज द हेमेटोमा इज ऑलरेडी ट्रेन्ड. तो ओपन फ्रैक्चर में क्लोज रिडक्शन कर नहीं सकते, इट विल ऑलवेज बी ओपन रिडक्शन. और इंटरनल फिक्सेशन भी नहीं कर सकते बिकॉज इंटरनल फिक्सेशन विल बी इन्फेक्टेड. तो ओपन फ्रैक्चर को फिर फिक्स किस तरीके से करें? प्लीज सी, let us suppose there is a wound over this fracture. This is open fracture of tibia. So what I have done, I have put 2 pins in the normal bone above and I have put 2 pins in the normal bone below, and outside the skin I have connected these pins with rods and nut bolts. So just see, no metal at fracture site. Whatever metal is in the bone is in the normal bone above and it is in the normal bone below, and there is no metal at the fracture site because most assembly is outside the skin. तो अब इसमें इन्फेक्शन नहीं होगी क्योंकि वुंड के आसपास कोई मेटल ही नहीं है. So this type of fixation is called external fixation. So that is how we treat open fractures. You can call it as open reduction external fixation or you can simply call it as external fixation. But let me tell you the scientific way. Open fracture में we first go with debridement. We clean the wound. उसकी dirt निकालते हैं, उसे clean करते हैं, बैक्टीरिया निकालते हैं, and then we fix this fracture with external fixation that I just showed you. So that is how you treat open fracture. तो किसी भी फ्रैक्चर को ट्रीट करना है, पहले डिसाइड करो वो क्लोज फ्रैक्चर है या ओपन फ्रैक्चर है. ओपन फ्रैक्चर है तो गो विद एक्सटर्नल फिक्सेशन, डिब्राइडमेंट प्लस एक्सटर्नल फिक्सेशन. हाँ, क्लोज फ्रैक्चर है तो यूनिवर्सल कॉन्सेप्ट के साथ चलो, पहले क्लोज रिडक्शन ट्राई करो, क्लोज रिडक्शन हो ही ना पाए तो ओपन रिडक्शन पे चले जाओ. और हाँ, नेलिंग का प्लान कर रहे हो, स्क्रू फिक्सेशन नेक ऑफ फीमर, K-bar फिक्सेशन सुप्राकॉन्डाइलर ह्यूमरस, क्लोज रिडक्शन इंटरनल फिक्सेशन, बिकॉज इन 3 जगह पे फ्रैक्चर साइट का हेमेटोमा स्किन इंसिजन से ट्रेन नहीं होता। और ध्यान रखना कि फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में ओपन रिडक्शन इंटरनल फिक्सेशन करनी है, देन इट शुड बी अ फ्रैक्चर ऑफ नेसेसिटी। इट शुड ईदर बी इंट्राआर्टिकुलर फ्रैक्चर और ग्लेजियर मोंटेजिया फ्रैक्चर और अ फ्रैक्चर ऑफ lateral condylar femoris. So that's all for this session, and before I sending you to a short break, इस सेशन को रैप अप करने से पहले एक इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ दिखा रहा हूँ। दिस इज Ilizarov ring fixator. This is just a modification of an external fixator. The purpose of this fixator is not to treat open fractures. हालांकि एक्सटर्नल फिक्सेटर जो है, ये जो मैंने एक्सटर्नल फिक्सेटर दिखाया है, ये ओपन फ्रैक्चर्स के लिए डिवाइस हुआ था, पर इसी की एक मॉडिफिकेशन है Ilizarov, जो फ्रैक्चर की ट्रीटमेंट के लिए नहीं बना, ओपन फ्रैक्चर के लिए नहीं बना, कुछ अलग काम करता है। आई जस्ट शो यू। Ilizarov इज बेसिकली अ रिंग शेप्ड फिक्सेटर। इसमें ये रिंग्स होते हैं एंड द रिंग इज फिक्स टू बोन विद मल्टीपल वायर्स। ये मल्टीपल वायर्स के साथ रिंग बोन पे फिक्स हो जाता है, और ये जो रिंग्स होते हैं ये आपस में कनेक्ट हो जाते हैं बाई रॉड्स एंड नट बोल्ट्स। नाउ व्हाट इज द प्रॉपर्टी इन दिस Ilizarov कि जब मैं इस नट बोल्ट को रोटेट करूंगा ना, ये रिंग्स आपस में स्लाइड हो सकते हैं, पास भी आ सकते हैं, दूर भी जा सकते हैं। तो हम इस प्रॉपर्टी को कैसे यूज करते हैं? आई हैव पुट अ रिंग ओवर हेयर एंड फिक्स टू बोन विद अ वायर। आई हैव पुट अ रिंग ओवर हेयर एंड फिक्स टू बोन विद अ वायर। और फिर मैंने रिंग्स को आपस में कनेक्ट कर दिया है विद रॉड्स एंड नट बोल्ट्स। नाउ आई हैव कट द बोन ओवर हेयर। मैंने बोन को काट दिया है, कॉटिकॉटमी, ऑस्टियोटमी, कटिंग द बोन एट योर लेवल सेम, कॉटिकॉटमी, ऑस्टियोटमी, बोन को काट दिया है। तो मैंने यहाँ से बोन को काट दिया है। नाउ आई विल रोटेट दीज रिंग्स। मैं इन्हें रोटेट करूंगा सो दैट द फ्रैक्चर साइड मूव्स अवे, द फ्रैक्चर साइड डिस्ट्रैक्ट्स बिकॉज द रिंग्स आर मूविंग अपार्ट। रिंग्स दूर मूव कर रहे हैं, फ्रैक्चर साइड डिस्ट्रैक्ट कर रही है। नाउ व्हाट हैज बीन सीन इन ऑर्थोपेडिक्स दैट इफ यू डिस्ट्रैक्ट अ फ्रैक्चर साइट एट द रेट ऑफ 1 मिलीमीटर पर डे, अगर मैं ये फ्रैक्चर साइट को डिस्ट्रैक्ट कर रहा हूँ 1 मिलीमीटर पर डे पे, देन व्हाट विल हैपन एट द डिस्ट्रैक्शन साइट? न्यू बोन फॉर्मेशन। बोन दूर मूव करती जाएगी और गैप में नई बोन बनती जाएगी, बोन लंबी होती जाएगी। सो दैट इज द पर्पस ऑफ द Ilizarov, लिम्ब लेंथनिंग। जहाँ जहाँ हमने पैर को लंबा करना होता है वहाँ पे हम Ilizarov फिक्सेटर यूज करते हैं। सो प्लीज 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 नोट डाउन विद मी a few points about Ilizarov ring fixator. इसके बारे में भी 2 लाइनें बता दूं। Ilizarov ring fixator, तो ये जो Ilizarov ring fixator होता है, this is nothing else, it is basically modified external fixator। ये एक modified external fixator होता है। The principle is something called distraction histiogenesis। मतलब टिश्यू को डिस्ट्रैक्ट करोगे तो वो टिश्यू लंबा होता जाएगा, बट याद रखना द रेट ऑफ डिस्ट्रैक्शन 1 मिलीमीटर पर डे। 1 मिलीमीटर पर डे पे टिश्यू को डिस्ट्रैक्ट करोगे तो वो लंबा होता जाएगा। और इसके जो यूजेस रहेंगे, जहाँ जहाँ हमने लिम्ब को लेंथन करना है, आई थिंक यू रिमेंबर टाइप 5 फाइजियल इंजरी, वो फाइजियल क्रशिंग हो जाती है, पैर छोटा रह जाता है, लिम्ब लेंथ डिफॉर्मिटी आ जाती है। तो जहाँ जहाँ लिम्ब को लेंथन करना है, जहाँ जहाँ डिफॉर्मिटी करेक्शंस करनी है, वहाँ पे हम Ilizarov ring fixator यूज़ करेंगे। सो Ilizarov ring fixator is basically a modified external fixator that is used for distraction histiogenesis to lengthen a limb by distracting a tissue at the rate of 1 millimeter per day. So it's used for limb lengthening and deformity corrections. So that is how you use this Ilizarov ring fixator, modified external fixator. So that's all for this session.